So we have been learning that the world is a video game. But what's the point of the game? Why are we playing it? And are you playing to win? Because of the principle of fractality, we can say that the game exists on many different levels. So there's a primary game, and then there's a game within the game, and then there's a game within that game. And then there are games larger than the one you think is the largest. The question is, what's beyond all the games? How do you get out of having to play all these games? How do you win? How do you come to graduate from this level of consciousness, which is constantly being tested to see if it's intelligent enough to avoid the snares that cause unhappiness? So it's a game that increases your intelligence, isn't it? But you have to want to increase your intelligence. Otherwise, the ego mind, which is your enemy, that's who you're playing against. As long as your ego mind can convince you that it is you, you lose. Because it's not going to get more intelligent. It's going to fall into all the traps because it likes the traps. And it wants you to accept that you have no power to avoid falling into all the traps. And as long as you think you are the ego mind, all the thoughts that pass through your mind, you know, these are my thoughts, and you buy into it, that you have lost the game. You're not making any progress. And the more points that you lose by buying into this, the more karma you create, the more baggage, the more difficult it is then to get to the higher states. Whereas the more often that you choose not to believe you're the ego, not to fall into the traps, the stronger you get. The more willpower is given you, the more clarity, the more sattvic determination to persevere until the ego illusion is completely gone. So, are you playing the game realizing how much is at stake? And do you understand that the time frame of the video game is nearly at its end? If you don't win it within a very short time, obviously time is an illusion, but within the game clock time, if you don't get liberated, the clock ends, game over, but you lose, and you have to go through this all over again, lifetime after lifetime, and learn all the same things, go through the same traps, the same struggles, the same insanity. Do you really want to do that? Or do you want to get out of having to go all through this twice or 100,000 times? This has probably already been the case. How many times will it take till they know? So this is the question. You have to want to know. You have to want to be free. But you have to know that you're not the ego. Otherwise, you'll want freedom on the ego's terms. Every ego wants to be free, but it wants to be free not to grow up. It wants to be free not to have to think, not to have to love, not to have to care, not to have to grow, not to have to recognize what is real and what is unreal, and to choose the real. So if you don't make that choice accurately, then you are choosing to be a prisoner of the game. Because your ego is an agent of the matrix. It's Agent Smith, no matter what name it seems to carry. It's an Agent Smith. It's simply an artifact of the game. The ego literally is soulless. It's just a robotic repetition of an algorithm. That's all it is. The ego doesn't even care. It doesn't actually exist. It's simply, literally, as part of a video game program. So the fact that you would stay loyal to the ego, I have to protect this inner child. I have to make sure it's okay. My mother didn't take care of it. I have to take care of it now. And, you know, all of these narratives that one has about a non-existent program. You want to keep that alive, an infantile way of being full of self-doubt, self-hatred, self-attacks, a severe superego that constantly keeps you in a hell realm. This is what you want to keep alive? So, as soon as you become disloyal to the ego and realize it's your enemy, and it's not you, and it has nothing to do with you or ever did. This was just the game. This is your icon. This is what you're given to figure out who you're not so you can discover who you are, who is the actual intelligence that created the dream in order for you to wake up from it. So, the fact that it's a game is well known to all sages. So I want to start with a quote from Satpurusha. This is from Anubhava 2, saying number 114. A man who has freed himself from the pleasures and passions of the body, ego is identified with body, right? That's the algorithmic connection that will never be broken, right? So the one who has freed himself from that, the jouissance of the body, is indeed the blessed man, the man that knows the real as it is. He has won the game that the world is. Okay? Here is Satpurusha telling you this is a video game. Okay? It's not me, it's not that guy on the video that you watched. This is Satpurusha telling you this. I hope this has some credibility for you. This is a game. Okay? And your destiny depends on how well you do in this game. But there's really nothing that will help you if you don't win the game, okay? It's not good enough to end with a good score. Yes, you'll have a better next lifetime to try again, but you're going to forget everything you learned in this lifetime, and so you're really going to make the same kind of mistakes over again. This is when you have knowledge. This is the moment when it's most precious. You understand the whole thing. You get that it is a game. You have the consciousness. You have the urgency because the world is collapsing around you. There's no reason to want to even play the game anymore. There's no profit in it. This is the absolutely ideal moment to achieve liberation. It couldn't be better. Okay? There's no profit in not getting liberated. You know, the ego used to be able to say, oh, but I want a good job and I want to have the children and I want to do... What are you talking about? The world is ending. There is nothing to want other than liberation. Think about it, please. So, his self alone is his delight, and he remains forever established in the self, despite all the illusory pleasures of the world at his call and command. They cannot tempt him. He abides forever in bliss, without desire, without thought. Okay, that's how you win the game. You conquer desire. And you can only conquer desire by becoming disinvested in thought, because all of the ego's thoughts are desires. They are to get you trapped in the illusion of desire, which is the great sickness. So here is Satpurusha in saying number 105. A disease inflicts every being that has come to live in this world. Not for a moment will it let him rest. This disease that inflicts him, the disease of desire. No power can appease that thirst of him, no fame, no glory. Now listen to this. Satpurusha is he. The real man is he who has cured himself of this malady. You know, every guy wants to be a real man. And every male in the world today knows they're not a real man and that they got to become a real man. But the only way you become a real man is to be a Satpurusha. It's not to be the Marlboro man. It's not to be Schwarzenegger. It's to be the Satpurusha. And the same for a real woman, but this is the real key, because even women want to be real men today. Since there are no real men, they want to take that vacuum and fill it. But with an egoic version of the masculine, that's a total self-defeating prospect. So the only reality, and even to be a daughter of the people, and no, that's a narrative fiction. Give it up. There are no daughters and there are no people. This is a simulation, okay? Do not think it's real. You're not in it. You've never been born, okay? So if you don't get that ajata siddhanta, you can't get to the higher levels. Give it up. Don't try to be somebody in this world. Not even an illumined being, because it's still an illusion. So, what he says in saying 133, which I find very interesting. Let me see if I want to read the one before that. Well, okay. To live with the sat, with the truth, is as one's life and being is to live in truth. Okay, he's a sat yogi. He is telling you the only relationship to have is with sat itself. Not with your ego, not with other people since they don't exist, and not with the world. There is no world. Only a simulation that's a projection of your own consciousness. So only by union with sat will you get free. The being that has not made the Lord, which is sat, the self, his refuge and anchor, lives forever restless, the mind never able to come to dwell anywhere. Therefore let man take refuge in him and his will. Let all his efforts be directed toward that end. For with his will given up to God's will, he will find even his sojourn in the illusory world as suffused with calm and peace, the highest peace. Okay, so this goes against the grain of everything the ego has been taught in Kali Yuga. And it's very, very important. Let's go to the next one, saying 136. The true well-being of a person lies in making the self that is beyond the reach of weal or woe, in other words, beyond the matrix, his sole refuge. You've got to take a quantum leap outside of the matrix, which is where yourself is actually located at this moment, and abide there, not in the matrix through projection and identification with your body. You have got to transcend. So his law, that of the Lord of the universe, is the same for every being. The law, namely, that dedication to the truth leads to shanti, to transcendental peace, transcendental, beyond the matrix, and the obstinacy of self-assertion and the evil that goes with it will lead to woe the absolute. Okay? So there's only two choices. It's absolute peace and liberation and bliss, or absolute woe. And what is the cause of the woe? Self-assertion. Okay? This is the thing that every ego is obsessed with. I got to assert myself. I got to be confident. I got to have no doubt. I got to push and get power and show people who's the real boss and I'm the real thing and you better not mess with me and I'm somebody, right? That's the problem. And all of that is based on the ego's lack. Its lack of being, its inferiority complex that makes it need to try to prove itself. And it can't prove itself to anybody because it knows it's a fake. It's all a sham. It's not real. And it can't be real. The only reality comes, the only way that one ever feels grace is by letting go of the ego's emotions, its attitudes, its orientations, and accepting what comes unconditionally. To be in a state of unconditional love, that will make you a real man. But it has to be an unconditional love that is not based in the ego, because the ego always has conditions. It's an unconditional love that is a surrender of the I thought itself, so that one's love is for everyone, because everyone is a manifestation of the I that you are. There are no others. And that's victory in the game. It's the victory of love over death. And that victory is only attained through the surrender to the Lord of love, who is the Lord of the universe and the dreamer of this incredible game that we are playing, and who happens to be your own self.